No worries. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, no, I mean, you know, your camera, because they spread out. I don't know if you want to go.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, I think I need to be further back then.
You might need to be, I don't know.
Okay.
We'll see when they all line up, but they kind of spread
Yeah, they do. Hello. Okay, you good? You want me to turn it off or leave it on? Do you want me to turn it off or leave it on? Okay.
Are you guys good? Good afternoon. I'm here with Mayor Turner. Mayor, thank you for joining us. Congresswoman Jackson Lee, who's been fighting in D.C. on our behalf, and as well as Dr. Onyego and Dr. Peirce. I'll give brief remarks on the mayor, the doctors, the congresswoman, and then I'll repeat my remarks in Spanish. We faced a number of challenges over the last year, all of us together. We've come together to stay apart, to keep our communities safe. So many people are hurting right now, grieving their loved ones, struggling to pay the bills, sometimes all of the above. And it's tempting, especially during the holidays, to think that it's okay to visit friends and family now, especially now that there's a light at the end of the tunnel with a vaccine. But right now, in the holiday season, as the virus rages on around the nation and our state, we face the greatest challenge yet. In our hospitals, the numbers in the ICU have not stopped creeping up. All across Texas, communities are entering danger territory. The current situation where our medical center, the largest in the world, is routinely crossing its base capacity, means that procedures are postponed, that healthcare workers are at risk of burnout, that we can't sustain a surge in infections beyond where we are right now, and that we're living at the very, very edge. The way to show your loved ones that you love them this holiday season is to stay home, to put your plans on hold this year. So as we approach Christmas and as we approach the end of the year, Mayor Turner and I wanted to join forces today to convey the seriousness of how important it is for everybody to cancel gatherings this year. Show your love for others by not visiting. Wait until it's safe, until we've completely turned the corner, and that will be when enough people are vaccinated. There are always ways to celebrate. Enjoy the outdoor spaces that we have, the great weather we have these days with your household. Zoom with your family. Open presents virtually. Remind your children that Dr. Fauci has given Santa Claus the vaccine already. The mayor and I have discussed potentially imposing a curfew. To be clear, we're choosing not to do that right now because it's a last resort tool to use when disaster seems unavoidable. Right now, we can turn things around. That being said, we are not ruling out a curfew in the future, should we need to put an emergency brake on the already grave situation we're in. We can come out of the holidays in good health, in a better position as a community, or we could be in a much worse place come January. So my message today remains, please cancel gatherings and get tested. I'm happy to touch on the vaccine questions and the broader topic after the speakers, but just very briefly, right now we're in phase 1A, which is where frontline workers get vaccinated. This week, Harris County Public Health is receiving 3,000 doses of the Moderna vaccine. We are working on identifying where the needs are within that phase 1A so we can begin deploying it, and we'll keep folks posted as we make progress on that. Let me just close with this. A lot of the times you hear from even very sick people that the worst of COVID-19 is the shame they feel when they spread it to a loved one. Nobody does that on purpose, knowing that they have it, knowing that they can spread the virus. You don't want to hear that somebody got sick because you decided to host a holiday party. Please take care of your loved ones this holiday season. Thank you all so much. We'll hear from Mayor Turner and the rest of the speakers. Mayor.
Thank you, Judge, and I'm honored to be standing with you again today to emphasize the importance of the message that you just delivered, which I share with 100%. and it's good to be with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who's been spending a lot of her time in D.C. and then flying back and forth. So let me thank you, Congresswoman, for your efforts on our behalf, and it's very much appreciated. To Dr. Pers, to Director Williams, to Dr. Sherry Allego from Harris County. Let me just say I agree with Judge Hidalgo 100%. We both have been talking about where we are right now in Houston and Harris County. We've both been looking at these numbers intently over the last 6 weeks, and what we are finding is that the positivity rate is increasing, the hospital rate number is increasing, our ICUs up from where they were six weeks ago, and now we're getting ready to head right into the heart of our holiday season. And we both want to emphasize the importance of canceling holiday gatherings, parties, receptions, activities that people may have planned, and saying this is not the time to do it. And so we're asking you not to do it. We know that people have made plans to travel away, and people are traveling in. Again, if you can change those plans, postpone those plans, we would encourage you in the strongest of ways not to do that this year, to reschedule those plans for sometime next year. And it's important to do that to keep your loved ones safe and to keep yourself safe. I just, a couple of nights ago, a judge was on the phone with one of the city employees who has contracted the virus, and he's having a rough time. One of my employees, and so, you know, this situation is very tough, and we want to do everything we can to have you transition into 21 in a very safe way. Let me say that, like you, I love this time of the year. I look forward to gathering with brothers and sisters and family members and many others, but this will be different, just like Thanksgiving. And I am telling people to stay home, and quite frankly, I'm going to stay home. So it's not going to be easy, especially when you grow up in a city where all of your sisters and brothers, nieces and nephews, cousins and aunts live. But it's just going to be different. And so we're going to show our love for each other by staying physically apart, but we are going to be FaceTiming and Zooming and all of that on a regular basis. With regards to testing, let me encourage people to get tested. Okay, please get tested. The City of Houston testing sites will be closed on Christmas Eve tomorrow and on Christmas Day, but they will reopen on Saturday. Okay, so Christmas Eve, Christmas Day will be closed, but we'll reopen on Saturday. So please take advantage. I got tested yesterday. The news was good. Otherwise, I wouldn't be standing before you today. I would be on a Zoom call. Look, today the Houston Health Department is reporting 634 new cases of COVID-19, bringing the total case count for the city of Houston to 1,012.56. And the total number of deaths, unfortunately, is increasing by 2 in the city of Houston. As of Monday, our positivity rate in the city was 11.2. It has been increasing for the last several weeks. It has not gone down. It's going up. And quite frankly, we don't need it to go up any higher, and we need your help to blunt the virus. Now, let me touch on something that I found disturbing. Monday night, as I was telling you, Monday night, a man entered a bar, the Grand Prize Bar, with his mask half on, really not wearing it. And when he was reminded to put his mask on, to put it on correctly, he went to the restroom, came out, and then he struck one of the employees with a bottle over his head, and the employee ended up having to get 10 stitches. Let me just say that is unacceptable, okay? That type of behavior is unacceptable. I've been talking with Chief Acevedo. We are aggressively looking for this individual. We want to find this individual. We want to find him and arrest him and bring charges against him. Quite frankly, I view it as almost like attempted murder myself. But this type of foolishness is not going to be accepted. This lawlessness of this kind is not going to occur, be allowed, especially when all we're asking people to do is to wear your mask. And quite frankly, if you don't want to wear your mask out in public or when you're going to a business establishment, then you need to stay home, okay? It's really just as simple as that. But engaging in this type of activity in the city of Houston is not going to be allowed. Lastly, let me just say that the city is doing its part to educate and protect people from the virus. Tomorrow, Christmas Eve, the city of Houston is joining forces with the citywide club of clubs for the Christmas Eve Super Feast event tomorrow. We'll be passing out about 40,000 masks tomorrow. In addition to that, what we discovered during the Thanksgiving Day holidays is that you give people turkey and supplies. Many people were giving those turkeys back. So we're going to be partnering with a number of restaurants in the city to provide 25,000 hot meals that they can take, and they'll be ready to be eaten when they leave the Super Feast. So please be safe. But again, the central message for today is to cancel all holiday parties, gatherings, events. Please stay at home with your immediate family, and then let's join together to blunt the spread of this virus, and then let's transition into next year together. And I do want to emphasize the New Year's Eve parties. No. No to the New Year's Eve parties. No to the New Year's Eve gatherings. Okay? No. And what I say is that, and what I mean by that is the judge and I have been talking, don't want to exercise the ultimate tool that we have, but simply want to say to people as it relates to the New Year's Eve festivities, it cannot, must not be the same as they have been in years past. This time, celebrate New Year's Eve coming into the New Year's Day. Celebrate them at home with your immediate family. No to the house parties, okay? No to the house parties. But just stay with your immediate cluster, your pod, and let's move forward together. Thank you, Judge. Appreciate the leadership. We've had many, many conversations, and just really appreciate your leadership during this entire year. Thank you. Dr. First.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Judge Hidalgo, for having us, and thank you, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee, for your never-ending, it appears, support. So thank you so much for that. I just want to pick up on a couple of things. From an epidemiologic standpoint, when we look at with the contact tracing, what we're finding is that when there are spread of virus, it's not in what I'm going to refer to as controlled environments. And so if you think of most workplaces, that's a controlled environment. If you think of the classrooms, a lot of the superintendents and the teachers and the school nurses have done a great job of making school classrooms controlled environments. That's not where we're seeing the spread. Where we're seeing the spread when it comes to school are the after-school programs where people drop their guard. We're seeing the spread at funerals. We're seeing the spread at weddings. We're seeing the spread at parties that the mayor mentioned. And around the holiday season, this is the time when we're going to have family members come together, people who are really comfortable with each other because they're family members. And that's when we have a tendency to drop our guard. And our epidemiology is telling us that that is exactly the places where we're seeing the spread. I will also say that every one of us up here recognizes that what we're asking for not having Christmas gatherings is a huge ask. I think everybody recognizes that this is a huge ask. And when we went back to Thanksgiving, in my family, my wife and I had not seen our grandchildren since February. So I put together a plan at my house where we had a really, really long table outside. It was over 20 feet long. I think it was almost 30 feet long. And we had a small gathering. It was less than 10. It was actually 9 people. And my wife and I were the only ones who were to be inside the house. And everybody else is to be outside. And you know what? We did well. But we didn't do perfect. And that was my house. We did well, but we didn't do perfect. We are not having Christmas at our house this year. We're just not going to. All right? And that's a huge ask for my family. Because just like your family, it's a special time, and we really all want to be together. But it's really serious that we pay attention to what's going on. This morning I did a little bit of the statistics for a different conversation I was going to have today, and I looked at and I asked the media to go ahead and fact check me on that. You look at the number of cases that we've had in Houston, Harris County, and then you look at the number of hospitalizations, you're going to divide that, and you're going to find out that it's right around just under 9% of the known cases wound up being hospitalized. That's a huge percentage. And if you look at the number of cases that were hospitalized and you divide into that the number of deaths, it's just under 12%. That's a huge percentage. The risk is really serious. And so we are not out of this. The vaccine is on the horizon. That's good news. But it's not here yet. We don't all have it. We do not have herd immunity. And I think that we all recognize what we're asking for is a lot. But it's really important. So in my house, we will not be celebrating Thanksgiving other than over the phone and through FaceTime. And I would ask that you do the same, because I care about your family as much as I care about mine. Dr. Niego.
Thank you, Judge Hidalgo, and thank you, Mayor Turner, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee, Director Williams, and Dr. Peirce. I'm Dr. Sherry Onyego. I serve as the Interim Local Health Authority for Harris County. Our departments with Harris County and City of Houston have been working very diligently throughout this pandemic. And we all know it's been a long and unpleasant journey for us all, but we have to understand that it's not the end of this COVID fight. We continue to see increases in cases and hospitalizations and unfortunately deaths, just as has already been mentioned today. The positivity rate is showing the worst of the virus is still here and spreading throughout our community. We've unfortunately seen our positivity rate double over the last 2 months, and if we continue with this trajectory, it may triple by January. And that's why it's extremely important for us to avoid any type of gatherings this holiday season. I certainly wish we could all be with our families, but unfortunately, as we all know, this is just simply not the time. And I hope that you would agree with me, just as others have said today. It's just extremely important to our health as well as the health of the people that we love to make this a priority, that we limit these gatherings. Even with the arrival of the vaccines, it's important that everyone continue to practice all of the prevention measures that we have in place, such as watching our distance, washing our hands, and wearing our face mask. And more importantly, we have to reinforce testing. Testing continues to be the foundation of our response, and we simply can't trace if we don't have a case. And I want to remind the community that testing by Harris County Public Health continues to be absolutely free, and regardless of anyone's status and regardless if someone is showing symptoms or not. You can log on to hcphtx.org or readyharris.org, or you can even call our call center at 832-927-7575, and someone will assist you, even those who don't have transportation to a testing site. The website will have our holiday hours. We will also be closed on December 24th and December 25th in observance of the holidays, but we'll be back open on December 26th. Harris County Public Health, again, wants to encourage residents to get tested. It's important to understand that whether you're showing symptoms or not, we finally do see an end in sight with the vaccines, but unfortunately, we just can't let our guards down right now, especially with the holidays looming around the corner. Remember that we're all in this together and that we have to stop the spread of COVID-19 in our community. So thank you.
Thank you to Judge Hidalgo and Mayor Turner for having me this afternoon, and for me to have the opportunity almost at the end of the year to thank these two public servants, both in the county and in the city, for the masterful effort to save lives and to utilize federal dollars in a way that helps so many people in this region. Let me thank the doctors for their leadership from both the city and the county, and Director Williams of the City Health Department. There are two things that we know will happen this holiday season, and they're both unpleasant. One will be family members who will be engaged with each other, and one or more family members will no longer be there because they have died of COVID-19. It's amazing to even think of that when we look back on Christmas of 2019 with a great deal of expectation for a new decade, 2020. The second thing is that families will be unable, for saving lives, to have the big family feast and fun times that they've had over the years. These are very difficult moments in our community, and some will be tempted to breach that, to not know whether loved ones are tested and are negative. Many people believe this is a loved one. They can come. But I think, as has been said, the family they're speaking of is the family in your household today that lives at your address today. If you have a member of your family that is not part of your household, that is not a person that lives in your home and can come and you still be protected. So with a little bit of humor, I'm asking everyone to have a skinny Christmas. Feliz Navidad. Make it skinny in any way that you choose to do. Maybe you'll feel good because you won't gain as much weight. But we have to be serious. I'm here as well to continue to emphasize that this way you stop the community spread is a very effective way that our county and city government has utilized our CARES dollars to continue testing. I really think our community has been a model of testing sites that have been available, no charge, and in many instances, no pre-registration. I ask you to continue to do that, even right after Christmas, by doing it on Saturday. The other point that I think is very important is that we have seen the revenue decline for both the county and the city mostly, and that will be for all of our cities and counties and hamlets throughout the state. They really have been hit hardest because they have so many services, our first responders, our municipal and county workers, all doing things that the people of this community need. And so the one thing that I'd like to emphasize is that our funding bills are complete. We have passed a COVID package for $900 billion that will send money, CARES money, to the counties and cities that they can utilize for rental assistance, the programs that they've created. They can utilize for housing, paid sick leave. They can utilize for testing and contact tracing. And of course, as the vaccines come, vaccine distribution. Now, I believe that we in the federal government have to be more helpful to local governments by providing them a roadmap of logistically how these vaccines are coming, and that is something that we'll be working on, and then how they and what areas and how the data should be accumulated as they proceed to do the work as best they can. I had the privilege of, before leaving for Washington Monday last, is seeing the vaccine come in at Harris Health, both at LBJ and Ben Taub. It was more than an early Christmas gift, but the main idea was to see health professionals, tears in their eyes, and willingness for them to get vaccinated. So we have a $1.4 trillion funding bill that is separated by COVID-19, and finally, an appropriations funding that is going to give the county what she needs in housing and what she needs to provide for the environment as well as infrastructure, and to the city for the needs that they have. We expect that this bill will be signed in spite of difficulties for the government not to close by the beginning of next week. And I would hope that at least our community will get the extra $300 per week on unemployment, which we passed, and everyone wants $1,000, $2,000. We all fought for that. I fought for $2,500 for an individual, $1,500 for a child. But where we came down to, because of the opposition of the members of the Senate leadership, was $600 for the cash payment that really could be in the hands of Americans next week. As we plod through that, I do want it to be clear that our funding bills are ready to be sent, only needing a signature, and we're prepared to work as hard as we can to ensure that our local communities who have experienced such a deep revenue source loss are made whole. And we will do so as we continue to work into 2021 we moved past the budget cap, $12 billion, so that we could get more money to our local communities. We will continue to work on that and be reminded that this is our most important task. My final word is to speak of the vaccines, to make people understand that the process of vaccinations will not be finished in the spring or May. They will continue for a period of time until we can vaccinate the entire nation. We ask for your patience and understanding, and we also ask that you willingly get vaccinated, as we have done, and some of us have done it publicly after we've been asked to do it, so that we can tell people it's okay, and it really is to save lives. That's what each and every one who takes an oath to serve this nation is responsible of doing, is helping to save lives and to protect our families.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And I do want to say, obviously, as local governments, we are squeezed right now by added needs and what we're going to see as a decrease in our revenues as well. So we appreciate the efforts by you and the leadership to send support and look forward to working with you in the new year on that as well. I'll make clear, based on the mayor's comments, I also will be spending Christmas by myself with my own two-person Christmas, two-person New Year, just as I had a two-person Thanksgiving. And so we are not just saying this. This is what we are doing, and we need everybody in this community to do the same. Very briefly in Spanish, and then we'll take some questions. Hemos enfrentado muchos retos este año, todos juntos. Hemos trabajado juntos para mantener la seguridad de nuestra comunidad. Muchas personas están sufriendo en estos momentos por salud, por retos económicos, a veces ambas cosas. Hay una tentación, un deseo, especialmente ahora durante las fiestas, de quererse reunir con amigos, con familias, ya que escuchamos las noticias de la vacuna que viene pronto. Todos queremos poder celebrar. Pero en este momento, en esta temporada de fiestas, mientras el virus sigue extendiéndose, estamos enfrentando el reto más grande hasta ahora. En nuestros hospitales, los números de casos en las unidades de cuidados intensivos no han parado de subir. Y a través de nuestro estado hay muchas comunidades que están entrando un territorio bastante peligroso. La situación presente en la cual nuestro centro médico, el más grande del mundo, está diariamente cruzando su capacidad base, significa que muchos procedimientos hay que posponerlos, que nuestros trabajadores de salud están arriesgando el poder seguir adelante, que no podemos sostener otro incremento en las infecciones por encima de donde estamos ahora. Estamos viviendo realmente en una situación al borde del peligro. La manera de mostrar su amor hacia otros esta temporada de fiestas es quedarse en casa, es el no llevar a cabo planes de reuniones. Entonces, a medida que nos acercamos a las Navidades, al fin de año, el alcalde Turner y yo estamos aquí juntos para comunicar la seriedad de la importancia de cancelar reuniones este año. Muestre su amor hacia sus seres queridos al no visitarlos. Espere, por favor, hasta que sea seguro, hasta que realmente tengamos las vacunas hacia la mayoría de la población. Hay maneras de celebrar. Puede disfrutar los parques tan hermosos que tenemos en este condado con las personas con quien vive. Puede hablar por Zoom con su familia, por Internet. Puede abrir los regalos virtualmente. Puede recordarle a sus hijos que el doctor Fauci ya le administró la vacuna a Santa Claus. Entonces, eso es lo que realmente les quiero pedir. El alcalde y yo hemos hablado de la posibilidad de instituir un toque de queda. En este momento estamos decidiendo no hacerlo, porque es algo de último recurso. En este momento todavía es posible evitar un desastre. No estamos eliminando la posibilidad de implementar un toque de queda, pero si los números empeoran mucho durante esta temporada de fiestas, puede llegar a ser necesario. Podemos salir de estas fiestas, entrar el nuevo año en buena salud, en una mejor posición como comunidad, o podemos estar en una posición mucho peor. Entonces el mensaje el día de hoy es, por favor, cancele las reuniones y hágase la prueba. Podré hablar más acerca de las vacunas en respuesta a preguntas, pero solo quiero informarles a todos que en este momento se está distribuyendo las vacunas al nivel 1A, que son básicamente los trabajadores médicos. También el condado ha recibido 3,000 vacunas el día de hoy. Esas vacunas se estarán distribuyendo en los días que vienen a poblaciones dentro de ese grupo 1A que estemos viendo no hayan recibido la vacuna aún. Voy a cerrar con esto. Muchas veces escuchamos de personas que tienen el virus, inclusive personas muy, muy enfermas, al borde de la muerte, que dicen que lo peor del virus ha sido la humillación, la tristeza que sienten al saber que le han dado el virus a una persona querida, a un ser querido. Nadie contagia a otro y menos a un ser querido a propósito. Nadie lo hace sabiendo que tiene el virus, pero aún así eso sucede todos los días. Usted no va a querer saber que alguien que usted ama tiene ahora el virus simplemente porque decidió llevar a cabo una reunión de Navidad o de Año Nuevo. Por favor, cuide a sus seres queridos esta temporada de fiestas. I'll stop my remarks there and we'll answer questions.
Can you talk a little bit about the curfew and how seriously that was considered? And is there an immediate trigger? Is it percent? Is it a number that you're looking for in order to impose that? Or what stopped you from doing that?
The mayor and I are looking, obviously, at the numbers consistently. The curfew is a very blunt tool that we have, pretty much the last tool that we have. And so we want to make sure to deploy that in a very worst case scenario. Curfews is something you hear about when there is, after a disaster, after a period of violence. It's a very serious thing. Right now, we're at a point where if people do their part, we can still turn things around. It's not a foregone conclusion that we're headed into a completely unsustainable place, but we're very close. The way I look at things, the numbers continue to creep up. The ICU population numbers continue to accelerate. That acceleration is not increasing, so we have a little bit of runway, but we'll see what happens. And, we don't want to use up that last tool until it's absolutely necessary, especially recognizing how blunt a tool it is. And I'll speak for myself, Mayor. I don't know if you have something to add.
And Judge, I agree with everything you had to say. It is something that the judge and I have talked about on several occasions. I will tell you, it's a document that's already prepared and ready to go to the extent we decide to go there. But it is the final tool that local governments have remaining. And I view it as a nuclear option. It impacts on good players as well as bad players. And once you've done it, then you've done it. And the question then, how long does it remain in place? I've had conversations, for example, with the mayor of San Antonio that put in place a curfew during the Thanksgiving extended weekend, and the results were problematic. So, it's something that we are assessing right now. We certainly want to get the advice from our medical professionals. We're looking at the daily numbers. We're looking at all of the indicators, and then we'll make that determination. But as we look at things today, our situation is manageable, though the numbers are going up, but it's a manageable situation. The numbers are not reflective of the numbers that we saw during the summer, But that's not to say that if we're not mindful of our behavior, that we can't get there. And that with this virus, you can go from 0 to 60 in a very quick time. But we do want to reserve it because that is really the only tool that we have remaining. That's why we agreed to have this joint press conference for us both to stand together today and to urge people in Harris County, people of the city of Houston, to be mindful of their behavior as we go into Christmas, still in Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and then especially the New Year Eve celebrations. To tell people, please cancel those activities. Don't do that. Don't force us to use a very blunt tool. I guess that's our message. Don't force us to do that because if we act together, then I think we can blunt the progression of this virus and start moving in the different direction. Thanks, Judge.
Several of the leading national COVID-19 models suggest Houston could become one of the next hotspots in the pandemic as things worsen. Are you concerned about this possibility and what needs to happen for that to not occur?
I'm very concerned. Look, the numbers that we're seeing, for example, in Galveston County or nearby areas, those are very hard to reach. Those thresholds of 15% of total available beds being COVID, that's something that, when we look at it, we say by the time you get there, you're really in a tough position. And so to see our neighbors reach that is concerning. We have not seen, as the mayor said, a decrease. We've consistently seen the cases increase and most worrisome, the ICU population continue to increase. So it is a very real possibility that we could end up facing the fate we've avoided thus far. But look, we have avoided it because of our ability to do our part, to take that personal responsibility, to be realistic about how this virus spreads. And that's why we're not mincing words today. Please, no gatherings for the holidays, no gatherings for New Year's, and continue to remember, the moment you are with somebody you don't live with, and you're taking off your mask, you are at risk of spreading the virus. And so those are situations that just should not be taking place until that vaccine is widely distributed. As the mayor said, we still have a little bit of runway, and so we need to make sure and save that very last tool that we have of the curfew until that moment. If we had other tools, we would be using them right now. But the tool we have right now is to speak directly to the community. And so that's why we decided, December 23rd, is it, with Mayor Turner together to stand here and very clearly say, we're all watching what's happening around the country. We're all watching what's happening around the state. There isn't an exceptionalism that can't happen here. The only reason it hasn't happened is because people have done their part. So please, keep at it. Everyone is tired, but the virus is not tired, and we have to keep going. There's now a light at the end of the tunnel. Sure.
I think what we need to be redundant on is to emphasize that these two jurisdictions can do all that they can. The national protocols from both NIH and CDC, Dr. Fauci has been on for almost a month talking about what happens when people gather, is to ensure that people don't travel and as well that they have the kind of Christmas I tried to describe, which is a skinny Christmas. But we see what happened after Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, there are many who did not listen. Some of the most troubling and difficult jurisdictions were places like Los Angeles, who had huge loss of life. They had a tremendous overwhelming of their ICU beds. People are traveling. For those of us who've been in airports because of our work, those people will come home. Even with the good work that has been done here, Houstonians have left town. People who live in Harris County have left town. The airports were pretty full. The airplanes are almost everyone full to capacity, those people will go and they will come back. And so compounding that is what happens to individuals who feel the necessity to not listen about gatherings. Because you will have returning residents who, one, would not be able to know what happened and where they went. And then finally, the judge is right, the mayor is right, people are tired. And they're going to see New Year's as a New Year's of unlike any other. It is getting rid of 2020, and it will be difficult to restrain yourself. We want you to get into 2021, to live to 2021, to live to get vaccinated, to live to be tested, and to not have the community spread. And those social events that we typically have on New Year's are the kinds of events that can be troubling and cause great damage. So we're trying to, on the federal level, to provide as much guidance as possible. The difficulty, of course, is that if people are not listening, local communities have to experience it. So for what we are saying here is if you're here locally, help us out, and it'll make a great, great difference.
One second. One of the videos that's going viral today, very much talked about, is James Harden at a large party at a Houston venue on Monday. Are the city and county enforcing rules and doing spot checks at capacity? And or is that club going to be investigated?
Look, we're always trying to educate folks about the threats of the virus. One thing to remember, though, is pretty much everything's at 75%. There's a massive loophole for bars. That's why we have to go straight to the community and say, please do your part. We are working to folks that are flagrantly violating, trying to get the TABC to do their part as well. But the truth of the matter is, the way things are set up, the way the restrictions are set up, we need everybody to do their part. We need a lot of responsible business leaders who are careful, who are doing their part. Residents, don't go into these establishments that are promoting dangerous situations. In many ways, the restrictions are out of our hands. I mean, the reason we are seeing these kinds of increases is now for weeks and months, the state has said pretty much everything can be open. But that's why we're here saying, look, it's the difference between what you can do and what you should do. And right now what people should do is be responsible for themselves and for their behavior out of love for their community and out of love for their families and their friends. Order takeout, order in, buy essentials, buy local for the holidays. But these kinds of gatherings, no, and we as local electeds are doing everything we can within the constraints of the capacity is pretty much 100%. We have very limited support from TABC, but obviously the places that are in violation, we're trying to do it. And look, we expect that of our community leaders too and public figures. It's on us to model that behavior. And that's why I think it's important for us all to say, look, we're going to be home with our household just as we're asking everybody else to be.
Mr. Mayor, can I follow up on that? Thanksgiving time, you had said that you would go into some of these bars unannounced, not for fun, but to see with your own eyes.
Right.
Have you been to them? What have you seen?
I have not been to any. Chief Pena is here. I know the fire marshals, he and I have talked. The fire marshals have been going to many of these businesses within our city, kind of to monitor the situation. But look, let me just say, if anybody is going into any of these clubs or bars and they're crowded, jam-packed, and people don't have their masks on, then that's just a community spreader. And quite frankly, if you're in any of these clubs, partying down, and you're jam-packed, and masks are not on, then that behavior simply is not responsible. So again, I mean, we are urging people to check their own behavior, to be good citizens, and to recognize that we all have responsibility to stop it. And if you don't just think about yourself, think about family members and friends, because you're going to leave these establishments and you're going to go home and you're going to go to some place. But in direct response, I've not been to these clubs. It's not my desire to want to go to these clubs. Quite frankly, if you're in the atmosphere, then you put yourself even at risk. And, you know, and if I go there, Ted, I'm going there with the intent of seeing and then to go to that next step to shut you down. So but I'm not going there to get a drink. I can get a drink at my own house. Cranberry and Sprite. Let me just put that in so people don't take that the wrong way. And then lastly, let me just say this, because I agree with the judge 100%. I am very much concerned about the modeling and about what they're saying that Houston, this region, can be the next hot spot. I'm very concerned about that. And we saw our numbers in March, April, May. In Harris County, this area, our numbers were much better than many places across the country. And then we saw when things opened up, what ended up happening. And so it's just like our numbers were good, but then the virus kind of made its way in this direction. Even now, relatively speaking, our numbers are, in a sense, better. But then if we become very complacent and start coming together and socializing like everything is fine, then literally you can go from 0 to 60 in a minute. And that's the reason why we wanted to come together today, to wave the flag and to issue the warnings and to tell people to check your behavior in the nicest of ways. Because we want to defy the modeling. And the only way we're going to keep it from happening is that we have to be very mindful of what we do now, going through the end of this year into 21. So that's what's important. I'm not telling people not to enjoy the holidays. I want to enjoy the holidays. Like I told my sisters, you know, I still want you to bring me what you cook. I just want you to drop it off and leave, you know. And you know, I still want the food, you know. So I told my sister, don't quote unquote, don't get it twisted, you know. Still prepare the food, but just drop it off, and then I'll thank you later. So there are ways we can, and then I'll call them and FaceTime them, and while I'm eating the food that they've prepared, I'm going to thank them for it, you know, and we're going to have a good time. But quite frankly, I love them so much, I want to see them next year. Okay? I want to see them next year. And you know how much I love my daughter. But I told her, you know, come drop off Daddy's gift and leave. Okay? Because I want to see you next year too. Okay? It's the sacrifices we make that will put us in the best position next year. Until such time as this vaccine becomes widespread, and then we'll take our cues from all these medical professionals, and then next year will be much, much better. So that's the plea that the judge and I are making. On this issue, we both recognize that if we're going to get as much compliance as possible, we have to make this special plea, and we can only hope and pray that people will honor and comply with it. So that's the hope. Okay?
Hidalgo. Es común que la gente no hace sus compras navideñas hasta la última semana. ¿Te preocupa la cantidad de gente en los centros comerciales? ¿Has tenido comunicación con los centros comerciales sobre la cantidad de gente?
Sí, entiendo que muchas personas pues están ocupadas, no tienen tiempo, sino hasta el fin de año para hacer las compras. Miren, lo que estamos pidiendo el alcalde y yo es, ok, compren los regalos, pero déselo a los seres queridos de lejos, nada de reuniones. En cuanto a visitar un centro comercial y eso, si es entrar y salir, si es de pasada, está bien. Eso la evidencia nos ha mostrado que si es simplemente va caminando, se cruza con una persona que tenga el virus, es muy improbable que se lo vaya a pasar. Entonces, si ve una tienda, un establecimiento muy lleno, donde haya una línea muy larga, todos muy de cerca, bueno, preferible ir a comprar en otro sitio. Pero en este momento estamos pidiendo apoye la economía local, compre restaurantes, pero coma en su casa. Regalos, entrégueselo a sus seres queridos, pero no haga reunión. Pueden abrir los regalos por FaceTime, por WhatsApp, por Zoom. Entonces, eso sí, se lo dejo al criterio de cada uno. No visitar, no comprar en sitios que estén muy llenos, pero comprar de entrada y salida, muchos de esos establecimientos le permiten recoger desde el automóvil, les dan la compra, se lo ponen en el automóvil, genial. Entonces, pero lo más serio es especialmente en Navidades y en Año Nuevo y en general, por favor, no se reúna con gente fuera de su hogar. Hágalo por ellos. Como dice el alcalde, así nos aseguramos de que podamos ver a esas personas nuevamente el próximo año. Gracias.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Congresswoman. How long are you going to be in town? You know, and tomorrow they'll let it blow up. It's going to blow up tomorrow.
So is it going to blow up?
They're going to put the 2,000 on the floor, and then they're going to, then the Republicans will object. And what they're telling me is that they're going to do it in writing. I said, let the man come to the floor and object. Let somebody Republican come to the floor and object. And I'm going to call them back. They said, we're deliberating. We don't want to break the procedure that we have. We put it in writing. The speaker said, well, it looks like
The mayor and I are looking, obviously, at the numbers consistently. The curfew is The mayor and I are looking, obviously, at the numbers consistently. The curfew is a very blunt tool that we have, pretty much the last tool that we have. And so we want to make sure to deploy that in a very worst case scenario. Curfews is something you hear about when there is, after a disaster, after a period of violence. It's a very serious thing. Right now, we're at a point where if people do their part, we can still turn things around. It's not a foregone conclusion that we're headed into a completely unsustainable place, but we're very close. The way I look at things, the numbers continue to creep up. The ICU population numbers continue to accelerate. That acceleration is not increasing, so we have a little bit of runway, but we'll see what happens. And, we don't want to use up that last tool until it's